que eu só queria jogar futebol, só quero jogar, só quero fazer de tudo pelo meu clube e pela minha família.
All right, let's jump right in and tackle this Ballon d'Or debate. Everyone's buzzing about Vinicius Jr. Like, is he a lock for the award? Our source seems to think so. But we got an expert here to help us really dissect this.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one for sure. You've got Vinicius Jr., this incredible winger for Real Madrid, just electrifying to watch. And then you have Rodri, this midfield maestro at Manchester City.
Right.
Two totally different players, but both at the absolute top of their game.
Right. And it's fascinating to see how their paths to the top have been so different. Vinicius Jr. came from pretty humble beginnings in Brazil.
Yeah.
And Real Madrid saw that spark, that raw talent, and they snapped him up while he was still a teenager. Can you imagine the pressure?
I mean, talk about being thrown into the deep end. Right from the start, he had all eyes on him.
Exactly. And then you have Rodri born in Madrid, practically destined for a career in Spanish football. And he's become this essential piece of the Manchester City machine, controlling the game like a conductor, setting the tempo.
It's almost like he's dictating the pace of the entire match, sometimes speeding things up, sometimes slowing it down depending on what the team needs. He's like that metronome keeping everything in sync.
So let's get into the stats, because our source points out that Rodri scored 10 goals and had 5 assists this season, which isn't too shabby for a guy whose main job isn't even scoring. And let's not forget, he was instrumental in Manchester City winning both the Premier League and the Champions League.
Yeah.
He deserved it.
But without him, we could not do what we are doing.
Rodri is absolutely fit so well for City system. If you take him out, it's different City. Because for me, at City, this is the hardest, the toughest, the hardest position to play. It's the hardest. And Rodri suits there so well.
Those are some serious accomplishments. But, to really grasp Rodri's brilliance, you got to understand pressing in football. It's this organized chaos where players basically swarm the opponent the second they lose the ball, trying to win it back up the pitch. And Rodri, he's a master of this, anticipating passes, reading the game, making these crucial interceptions. That's what allows Man City to just dominate possession and keep attacking.
I see. But then you look at Vinicius Jr.'s numbers, and it's like, whoa, 28 goals and 15 assists, more than double what Rodri contributed. And it's not just the quantity, it's the timing, too. This guy steps up in those clutch moments. When the pressure's on, like in the Champions League final, remember that incredible run he made, just leaving defenders in the dust before scoring? Pure magic.
Yeah, he's definitely a game changer in those big moments. But here's the thing. The Ballon d'Or isn't just about those flashes of individual brilliance, right? It's about being the best in the world. And that kind of raises the question, what does best even mean in a team sport like football?
Our source makes a pretty strong case for Vinicius. They highlight 3 main points. His direct contributions, all those goals and assists we were just talking about.
Yeah.
His obvious impact on Real Madrid's wins, and his overall game influence.
And that last point is where things get really interesting. Because when they talk about Vinicius's game influence, they're referring to how he just bends the game to his will. He's not just scoring himself. He's drawing defenders in, creating space for his teammates. His movement is so unpredictable. His pace is so electric. He forces the other team to constantly adjust, and it disrupts their whole flow.
So even when Vinicius isn't directly involved in a goal, he's still kind of pulling the strings, orchestrating the attack, making things happen.
Exactly. And that kind of impact is tough to measure with just stats. But then the question becomes, is this game influence as impressive as it is? Is it enough to overshadow a player like Rodri, who's so consistent and controls the game in a different way? That's the big question we're wrestling with here. And I think it boils down to, how you define greatness in football.
Right.
Do you prioritize those moments of individual brilliance, the jaw-dropping plays, or are you more drawn to tactical discipline, the subtle brilliance of a player who might not always be on the highlight reel, but makes the right decisions consistently?
That's such a great point. It makes this whole Ballon d'Or debate so much more interesting.
Yeah.
It's like comparing, say, a world-class chef who's making these elaborate, beautifully presented dishes versus a master baker who's consistently churning out the perfect loaf of sourdough. Both incredible, but appealing to different palates.
Exactly. And our source today, they definitely seem captivated by Vinicius's, that flair, that ability to just create something out of nothing. They even recount specific moments from this past season where he single-handedly turned the tide of a match with his skill and vision.
Yeah, they mentioned his performance in the Champions League knockout stages specifically.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, they argue that those are the moments where, the real superstars come out to play.